They own that country.
But the Argentines...
Well, the Aboriginals own this country. And the white people took off the Aboriginals. That's what it's all about.
We're not against that. All we want is our rights to say what we own. Haven't we got the right to say what we own?
This Aboriginal country.
The Commonwealth Games to all Aboriginals, and I've spoken to people out at Alice Springs as well as every Aboriginal person within Australia and Island person is talking about the Games and what the Aboriginal Island people, not so much Island people, but the Aboriginal people intend to do. They can feel an excitement there that at last something is happening where we're all going to be standing up and we're all going to say we want this, and Joe, you're not telling us otherwise.
And you know what will happen? They'll come and they'll clean up the parks. The cops. They'll come in wagons, 3 and 4 loads of them, and they'll move the old people out. They got no other life. Are they thinking about that? This is their land.
And then after that, we have to go down to the riverbank and sleep on the riverbank down there with no blankets, nothing. The coppers kick us out of here. We got a big fire going. Get out. Yeah, then we have to walk from here and go down to the riverbank and sleep down there. No blankets, nothing. And shiver. Shiver. This must be our land.
For the first time in Aboriginal history, in white Australian history, you are hearing what Aboriginal people themselves want, how they themselves think, how they want to participate, how they want to help themselves. Now, is that wrong? This is the first time that they're standing up and saying, we want our land back, what they're living on. It's out of the way. I mean, for God's sake, some white Australians have never been on the reserve.
A lot of people think that Aborigines shouldn't interfere with something like the Commonwealth Games. I say that it's about time we let the world know. Let the world know what's going on here. The only thing that Bajoki, Peterson and Fraser have got to be worried about is that they've got something to hide. Now we say there's no need. There's no need for a Queensland Aborigines Act still today. The Commonwealth Government's had the power for 16 years to get rid of it, and they haven't. So Aboriginal people have waited for 16 years. We wait no more.
They promised us this, and they promised us that, but all we ever get is a stab in the back. They tell us what to do, and they push us around.
The Black Protest in Brisbane is just another chapter in what has been a bitter tooth and nail battle by today's Aboriginal nation for physical and cultural survival. The corrupt hypocrisy of white governments and insensitive, negligent bureaucrats have given Aboriginal people no other choice but to break the chains of oppression through protest. Aboriginal people in all other states have achieved hard-won victories for basic rights by marching in the streets and displaying public protest.
Well, the actual competitors, pardon me, as I mentioned, is about 2,500, but you're looking at 30 to 40,000 people will be here in Brisbane at the time. And of course the other big part of any sporting event these days is the television coverage. And so we'll be looking to an audience of 500 million people throughout the world will be watching Brisbane and Australia during this period.
So they're protesting on the racism in Australia and that. They just want to get everyone's attention, not really necessarily stopping the games,
To let other countries know.
To let other countries know
what's happening in Australia.
What is like in Australia, it's just fucking racism.
Because not many other countries know what's happening in Australia, so this is a chance for other countries to come here to find out.
You hear about every other country displaying their racism.
I heard that other countries didn't even know there were blacks in Australia.
Other countries have different ideas of Australia, of Queensland, and a lot have different ideas of what and who an Aboriginal is. Some think we're still running around in the scrub with laps on. Or when they say that we are a people that's not demanding back our country, but just demanding back what we've got now, and be able to run our own lives, make our own decisions, determine our own destination.
You accept the fact that there are going to be people who will try and get their message across. We accept that. We would just like to see that done, pardon me, in the atmosphere of the games, which is the friendly games.
Allow the athletes to come over here, right, and do their bloody game, right, which I agree that games should be held, in my opinion. Do their games, right, and let them see Aboriginal people as it is. And then they might be able to fit in with the program, right, set out by the protest committee, you understand? And so then they can see for themselves what really happens in our community.
We are a dispossessed people. We are people that have been ordered from one place to another over the years for one reason or for another. We've been confined in places as if they were concentration camps.
People become really frightened to say anything because if they start speaking out, and it's been shown time and time again, that they'll say, oh well, if you're going to start talking out, you're just going to have to leave here, you know. You can move with your family. Or under the laws of the Act, they can just, you know, move a whole family to another area, to another reserve. And it builds up not just a fear, I think it's worse than that, because it makes our own people apathetic, where they don't want to think about anything, because they're too frightened that if they start thinking about anything, someone's going to come down on them.
We're sick and tired of people saying, we want to set up a separate state. That was set up years ago when they set up missions. There were states within the states. We're not creating a separate law. That was set up years ago with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders Act, where Aboriginal people have to live under a second law as well. So all that is propaganda from the past. We don't want a separate state, we don't want apartheid, and we don't want separate laws. We're willing to live under this law. But we also want to be recognised as the traditional owners of this land.
The black struggle has been long and weary. We have seen our fathers and our fathers' fathers suffer dearly at the hands of violent barbarians. For over 200 years, our people have bravely resisted the brutal savagery of this avaricious white Australia. The cost has been high. Countless thousands of our people died when genocidal massacre was the order of the day, and thousands more died, starving and diseased, in horrific concentration camps, known as reserves. The struggle, however, has not been in vain. Our forefathers fought and died so that we today could hold up our heads proudly and proclaim our Aboriginality.
And that's a price you have to pay to staging a great event. If it was only a small event, we wouldn't be attracting that publicity. But you accept that if you're going to put on a top international event, then people are going to want to hop on that bandwagon and try and, pardon me, get their message across.
Myself personally, and I know a lot of other Aboriginal people, right, knows that in the Commonwealth Games, is what I said to you before, that they ain't going to give us land rights overnight or during the Commonwealth Games. They ain't going to give us land rights on this piece of paper. No way they're going to fucking give us land rights. The only way you're going to get fucking land rights is what Aboriginal leaders or so-called movements right throughout Australia in the past has always fucking done, right? How come we get the bloody services? How come we get the housing, the legal, the medical, through fucking protest, through getting out on the bloody streets? That's the only fucking way.
And our own Prime Minister, you know, goes over to another country and receives a humanitarian award, and he's saying that he deplores racism and the South African apartheid, and yet they're not even looking in their own backyard of what's happening with the appalling health problems amongst our people. And white people aren't even aware because they don't associate, they don't get to these areas where we are living basically in an apartheid sector because black and white are rarely mixing in this country. And it's no fault of the black man. I mean, the white man has laid down so many laws and so much, I mean, they're the power structure in this country.
The state and federal governments are playing a game of politics. The Aboriginals are 1% of the Australian scene. We do not constitute a threat to their beautiful, plush seats in their parliaments. So they don't give a stuff about us.
We regard Malcolm Fraser as being the real key as to whether there will be violent confrontations in Brisbane or not. For for the simple reason that the Commonwealth Government has had the constitutional power since 1967 to just completely wipe the Queensland Act off the face of the earth. They don't need to go up and have drawn out negotiations with racist Queensland Government ministers. They don't even need to speak to the Queensland Government at all. All that is necessary is for the Commonwealth to draw up legislation affecting the lives of Aboriginal people in Queensland, and by virtue of the legality of the Constitution, that Commonwealth legislation then takes precedence over any state legislation. So that's how it can be done.
The Pitjantjatjara Jatjara people, who waged a long, hard struggle, including many marches and community rallies, finally achieved a victory last year with the granting of limited land rights. The important factor in all previous black protests has been the courage and determination of the people to withstand the pressure brought to bear by the forces of racist reaction.
Violence for 200 years. So why should you ask, should there be violence?
That's right.
Our whole life has been just one violent history since the 200 years, and all of a sudden you say, should there be violence? Should we be peaceful?
Look, the details of it, that's up to them. I'm not going to try and teach them how to suck eggs or how to organise their affairs. I think I've covered it before. We'd like to see the games as a friendly games, and that's the way we'd like to see it heading.
With leading up to the Commonwealth Games, the police have started enforcing their views and rights and what have you, especially in Townsville. They've been very, very hard in the last few months. Now, anything dealing with the Aboriginal colours, what they regard as being a threat and sort of a showing of the Aboriginality or whatever concept they have. You wear the badges, you display the Aboriginal flag, you have any of this rock against racism or black identity and what have you, well, you're immediately stopped and fined and stripped of that. So no one wears them now, not publicly anyway.
I know quite honestly, and through my spirituality, that a lot of black people have suffered enough. They got their fucking head kicked in, their guts kicked in, you know. Have got their brains screwed around, you know, their bodies removed. I mean, a lot of them have been through all this in the past. I mean, do they want to go through it all their fucking life? And a lot of them don't want to play the white man's game, of course. So there must be some other solution, right, to our problem. There must be, without violence. I mean, but history has proven that the only way we ever get anywhere, right, is like what our tribes have done. They seen the white man as friends, as spirits coming from somewhere. And then they see him as human beings. And they turn around and they stab him in the back. And so what they done is that they got the spear together, right? They sat down and they said, look, this white man, I thought he was a friend, a spirit, right? But he only human. He only come here to destroy us. And so we got to unite. So they get people from the Bunya Mountains, they get people all over the place. And tribes unite, right, to fight the common enemy, right? And then they get down and they fight him. Physically, they fight him. Mentally, they fight him. How mentally is that they tell their children to continue to fight, right up to even now. And so when the Commonwealth Games come up and the protests go on, I'll be one fucking nigger or one boong out the fucking front, right, I believe, on top of a fucking car or on top of a bloody tree or whatever, right, expressing what I fucking believe in the best way I bloody well can. And if a policeman gonna come up and say to me, you get down, boong, you can't do this, you can't do that, or if a politician come and say, you gotta get down on your knees and cry and beg over the bloody table to get what you want, I'm going to say to that politician, you go to fucking hell. I'm going to say to that policeman, you come and try and get me down, right?
And the feeling I'm getting from people that I'm talking with is that they're going to have the peaceful, they're coming here peacefully. And that's gospel. You can't disbelieve that. because you know that people are going. We're frustrated. Fair dinkum, we are. We're frustrated, but we don't want violence. We're not a violent people. We don't want violence, but we can see that there's going to be no alternative, that the police are going to start at any rate, because it's already starting. You know, people are getting harassed, and we know that it's all part of what's to come. And so, you know, Aboriginals want peaceful demonstration, but who will start, you know, it's stupid to ignore the fact that violence won't erupt.
The Queensland Government, continuing its strong police state traditions, has introduced earlier this year further legislation designed to prevent the expression of black protest in Brisbane at the time of the Games. The legislation known as the Commonwealth Games Act gives Queensland Police virtually unlimited power to harass and provoke the black protest.
Is to challenge the Commonwealth Games Act by saying it contravenes the Racial Discrimination Act on the grounds that when it was being drafted solely for blacks. You know, here's big Hinsey, Piggy Hinds, the Minister for Police and everything else in Queensland, right? Drafting up this act, and while he was doing it, he wasn't thinking about white people. He was thinking about all blacks running around Queensland with bazookas, Tommy guns, throwing grenades and bombs and everything else. So he deliberately made that act, right, to have us arrested, to keep us quiet and not even be seen in Brisbane. So we're challenging that Commonwealth Games Act in the High Court.
At about that time, and the Police Minister's popularity with the local press was probably at its worst level, we saw the introduction of two police department-inspired stories. One was a Maori was training Aborigines in guerrilla terrorist tactics in the North Queensland jungle, and the other was a story that the Queensland Premier generated when he tabled a so-called secret police report in the State House and said that that report, which he wouldn't let anyone from the opposition see, that report indicated that Queensland Police had compiled information that Aborigines were going to Libya to be trained in terrorist tactics by Libya's Colonel Gaddafi.
One of the things is that they can declare any area that they want to as a notified area. So right where we're sitting now at Griffith Uni, this is a notified area because it's close to where the Commonwealth Games are going to be held. If anybody comes within this area, they can be picked up, searched, taken to the watch house and kept there for any length of time that the police feel is necessary, which means that they can hold them there, you know, for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. There is no limit on the amount of time that they can hold them. They also don't have to state that they are charging them with anything to hold them. Now, I mean, if you want to talk about a police state, surely that's a really good example.
So that not only do you now have to get the permission of a policeman before you can carry out even the most peaceful, non-disruptive political protest, but under the Commonwealth Games Act, if you or any individual Aborigine or Aboriginal group or white group for that matter want to stand outside any of the Games venues and hand out political leaflets, that is going to be an offence for which you can be arrested on the spot, for which you're liable to a maximum of $2,000 fine or 2 years imprisonment or both.
How are you going to negotiate about a peaceful demonstration with police that have got, brought in all this new American equipment and they're arming themselves for conflict?
But know this, the violence will not come from us.
Where will it come from?
It will come from your police force, because they've been trained now to the violent scene. The police are now using the American Kosh.
You cannot have a revolution without violence. And that's a basic fact of life. No matter what nation on earth has created a revolution, there's always been violence. And here, we are speaking about people who have been downtrodden by a system, by the law, with regards to their welfare, and there possibly can't be without violence. Now, if there was any possibility of a protest without violence, there wouldn't have been any reason for the government to legislate and create new laws. They could have enacted under the old laws and contained us. But violence will be committed on us, the same it has been for 200 years. And all we'll do is resist in a way we know best, with our backs to the wall and probably with our fists in the air.
I wouldn't like to see any of our people get hurt. That would hurt all of us who may not be there, at the time. That's number one. I would like to see people from all over the world realize that our situation is very desperate, and give us some support.
So they don't believe in the violence. All they want is to march in group in peaceful way and let the public or the whole world to see that they are protesting for something that they've been deprived ever since the civilization has came to this country.
I'd like to see about 50,000 to 50 to 100,000 Aboriginal people to come up here and just show Joe that he can't, dictate to people and get away with it.
In the form of a peaceful demonstration.
If you got that if you got the numbers that you need, the police wouldn't be able to do anything. If you had 100,000 Aboriginal people, they wouldn't be able to come in and just bash people because the numbers would be too strong.
Our people have endured unspeakable hardship and suffering as the white invader attempted to wipe us from the face of this land, and yet we have still managed to survive with our cultural identity intact.
But now we know a lot, and we're going to really make sure, and we're really going to be working towards a successful and peaceful demonstration at these games, and we're going to make history, Aboriginal history.
Do we want these so-called peaceful white people coming along? These religious people who don't want any violence or anything like this, or these other people? Do we want them to come along? Of course we bloody well want them to come along. Yeah, we want them all to come along. We want the bloody non-violent, the violence, the old bloody pub drinkers or whatever. We want them to come along. Yeah, but we want them to unite and form a unity. And whatever black people want there, they should go along with it.
And I will probably be hurt myself because I'm not going to walk away from it. And I am a non-violent person. But if my people ask me to be in it, I will be in it. So if there is blood in the street, the conscience of the politicians of Queensland is in jeopardy, not mine, but theirs.
They're there, and they're even prepared to give up their lives. They are. This is their one stand on an international basis, and regardless of, what difference will a few more dead make to the countless thousands that were killed years ago, and are still being killed? So, what difference will a few others make? Nothing.
Today, however, black people still live in a world of violent repression. Abject poverty, racist police, and exploitative multinationals and pastoralists are all dominant factors in our oppression. We must fight with spirit to break the white man's insidious grip on our lives and to make a major effort to enforce our cultural destiny in this land. Black protest at the Games is a big step in changing our situation. Representatives from throughout the Commonwealth will be in Brisbane at that time, thus presenting an ideal opportunity to show the world the treacherous deceit of the Fraser government and the South Africa-style terrorism of state regimes. We urge you to support this struggle for justice.
They promised us this, and they promised us that, but all we ever get is a stab in the back. They tell us what to do, and they push us around, and then they have to go and rip out the ground.